In silence. Serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, I want to thank everyone for coming to the Atlanta Step Up Society Big Book Study. The name of our study is Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life. You know, everything is cause and effect. It's cause and effect. There's nothing happened on its own. The whole creation, everything started from nothing. Every building you see, every hat you see in here, every shirt you see in here, every pair of glasses you see, every pair of pants you see, everything you see started in some human's imagination. There's nothing on the planet that did not come out of human imagination. If you don't believe it, take us out of the scenario. Pull humankind out of it and just have the animals here and see what kind of mess you have. God did not give them himself in his image to be creative. I have 3 little dogs, Maltese, Trixie, Nola, and Snowflake. Not one of them created anything, and they've been around me a long time. They can't drive a car. They can't sing a song. They can't read a book. All through the history of dogs. I think the smartest one was the German Shepherd. What was it? Lassie. Even Lassie didn't make anything, didn't create anything. Lassie just was a good old dog, that's all. So my point is, we have a power. We have a genuine power that God is a gift from God. If we use it properly, we can expand not only our life, but the lives around us. We should be so popular, so powerful, so spiritual that when we walk, people around us should be elevated without us even saying a word. That's possible. When we go into rooms and we see newcomers, especially people who have been around, your words and your actions probably should, and I'm saying it to myself too, should be able to carry outward what people want to elevate to your level. That makes sense? We are living examples. And last week we was talking about Jim. We were studying the experience of Jim. And remember I told y'all these stories, they are stories. But they are stories about ourselves. And it said it somewhere last week chapter, how they took the jaywalker and transformed the jaywalker into an alcoholic. So my thing is, when we read and study Fred tonight, if you see anything in there that's you, make it become you. It don't have to be Fred. Because Fred's experiences is our experience. And each story or each experience that we go through, what it really is an instruction. It's a guideline. It's giving you an experience that we can grow from. Every experience, whether it's good, medium, or high, or bad, or low, it's a learning curve to become better. That makes sense? There's no, I hear people always putting people down. If I do something dumb and I'm put down, I can guarantee you I'm going to learn something from that position and come up and move on. I won't stay down. So what I'm saying is, we're going to study Fred tonight, and you're going to see some things that happen in Fred. And it's a guy that shared last week, and he was talking about how he used to get drunk. Most of the time he got drunk was when things were going good. Remember when the guy was sharing about that last week? When things were going good. I wanted to tell him that was Fred's story. Yeah. But I didn't, because I knew he would be here tonight. Yeah. So whoever it was, I know who it was. I don't want to break his anonymity, but I'm glad he's here. Because he and Fred and myself and everybody else are one. That makes sense? So if you turn to page, I'm not even on the correct page, turn to page 39. And my wish, and it's just a wish, that we finish more about alcoholism tonight. So we can go into the chapter on more on we agnostics. That's a beautiful chapter. We agnostics. As we keep going, we're leaving step one. We're leaving out of that position. And what we're doing, we're going more into, there's plenty of seats. They can just walk by. We're going into more spiritual growth. That makes sense? Yeah. We're going into more spiritual things. So if you turn to page 39, Mike's going to read, and he's going to read a little louder this time. He's a good reader though, ain't he, guys? Yes, all right. You got extra books? There's something in my office, Ken, over by the window. Those are the for sale ones that we're going to get turned back in tonight, ain't we? Let's go.
Fred is a partner in a well-known accounting firm. His income is good, he has a fine home, is happily married, and the father of promising children of college age. He has so attractive a personality that he makes friends with everyone. If ever there was a successful businessman, it is Fred. To all appearance, he is a stable, well-balanced individual, yet he is alcoholic. We first saw Fred about a year ago in a hospital where he had gone to recover from a bad case of jitters. It was his first experience of this kind, and he was much ashamed of it. Far from admitting he was an alcoholic, he told himself he came to the hospital to rest his nerves. The doctor intimated strongly that he might be worse than he realized. For a few days, he was depressed about his condition. He made up his mind to quit drinking altogether. It never occurred to him that perhaps he could not do so, in spite of his character and standing. Fred would not believe himself an alcoholic, much less accept a spiritual remedy for his problem. We told him what we knew about alcoholism. He was interested and conceded that he had some of the symptoms, but he was a long way from admitting that he could do nothing about it himself. He was positive that this humiliating experience, plus the knowledge he had acquired, would keep him sober the rest of his life. Self-knowledge would fix it.
All right, let's stop right there. Let's go back and break this down. All right, this guy's name is Fred. Go back to Fred. Fred is a partner in a well-known accounting firm. So this guy works with numbers, accounting. I try to stay away from him. But every time they do some work for me, it seems like the numbers go up, you know. In fact, we're doing that process right now. His income is good. You listen to this, Brother C back there? His income is good. He has a fine home, is happily married, and the father of promising children of college age. Seems like he's doing all right to me, right? He has so attractive a personality that he makes friends with everyone. If there was a successful businessman, Fred, it is Fred. To all appearance, he is a stable, well-balanced individual, yet he is alcoholic. Let me break that down. His life seems to be okay. And it says right here that he is well-balanced. If we go back, I don't want you to go back, we go back to the doctor's opinion. In the doctor's opinion, it said that in this statement, he confirms who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. It did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life. So when they was talking about being maladjusted to life back in the doctor's opinion, that means lacking balance, harmony, or balance. They was talking about alcoholics. It didn't satisfy us to be told that we were off balance, without a sync. All right. Then it comes to Fred. Fred was not imbalanced. He was balanced. The opposite. That makes sense? he was okay. He had his ducks in order, yet he was alcoholic. See, you can be balanced. You can be high on the, I guess, the human echelon on top. You can be in the middle, and you can be rock bottom. Alcoholic don't care. It don't make a difference. Sometimes people think that we have to be low down, skid row bums to be an alcoholic. That's not what it's talking about, Fred. Fred got it going on. But he take one drink, he skid row like me. It don't matter about your social status. It don't matter how much money you make. It don't matter whether you balance or imbalance. If you got the disease of addiction, it's going to hit you. Dr. Supworth and them said it in the beginning. The people who was at Towns Hospital were rich people, oil sheiks, people from American millionaires. That's who were walking them halls. But they were alcoholics. They're disease. We have a disease. So that wipes out or erases all this social status type stuff. You know what I'm trying to say? You can be $1 million crackerhead or a $2 crackhead. It don't matter. You still a crackhead. So if you think that you made more money, you better take that out the equation. You better work on that disease. A lot of people do that. They believe if I did it. If I just get that next job, I'm gonna be okay. Yes, sir. 14 jobs down the line, I'm saying the same thing. If I just get that next job, I'm gonna be all right. Don't work like that. I was carrying the disease to every job. That makes sense? Yep. All right. So this guy is balanced, yet he's alcoholic. All right. Let me do it. We first saw Fred about a year ago in a hospital where he had gone to recover from a bad case of jitters. That's them nerves again, remember? Everybody got some kind of nerves going on, jitters. It was his first experience of this kind, and he was much ashamed of it. Remember I told you about them lower base feelings? When you're in remorse, you're ashamed, you're feeling guilty, you're feeling embarrassed, feeling like everything done fell apart. You feel, your self-esteem is so low. You're feeling down. That's that lower base emotions, and he had it. He's in the hospital. All right. Far from him admitting he was an alcoholic, he's nowhere near step one. He 100 miles from step one. We did example of like Macon or Columbus. Macon about 100 miles from here or something like that. It's like he's in the hospital here, and the nearest he is to step one is in Macon. That's how far it is. That makes sense? He ain't nowhere near step one. He told himself he came to the hospital to rest his nerve. The doctor intimated strongly that he might be worse than he realized. The doctor knew. For a few days he was depressed about his condition. We went over this before. You got to change your thinking. Because if you do something, like I do it all the time, if I do something stupid, I'll be depressed for a few days. But my thoughts about doing the thing stupid might not have changed. I jump up with depression to go. But I've got the same mindset I had from what I did done before. That makes sense? The depression or that feeling, it'll go away. But it's about the thinking that must change. Because I do the same thing again 6 months down the line and get the same feelings again. Repeat that cycle over and over and over without changing my thinking. All right. He made up his mind to quit drinking altogether. Now we know that this is not a program about quitting. This is a program about allowing a power that's greater than us to remove the alcoholism or the crack. This is not a quitting program. Lord knows I quit everything I was doing the day before, I quit it the next day. To find myself doing it that night. The same thing I quit that morning. That makes sense? I was a professional quitter. So all I ever did was quit things. I quit, I give it up, thank you, Lord, remove it, whatever. And the next night I was there. I never put nothing in consistency. I would quit in the morning and be doing what I quit that night. Every single day. So I know quitting didn't work for me. It never occurred to him that perhaps he could not do so, in spite of his character and standing. You know, I went through that you know what? I think like when I really tried to get clean and sober, I went to a church organization. It wasn't a 12-step group. It was a church thing. And we went to church like 3 times a day, 7 days a week. No outside TV, no outside communication. If you wanted to talk to family or friends, they let you do it for 3 minutes on Saturday. Or we were just bombarded with church. Now, I'm not saying it don't work. But what I'm saying is that the whole time I was there, I kept thinking that I'm above this. Yeah. You know what I mean? These guys wasn't like me. They didn't own houses. I had a military career. I was an officer in the Army. These guys were privates. I kept that character and that standing way above the rest of them. Even though they had clean time in there. I couldn't understand why somebody had less education than me was the usher, and I had to sit in the pew. You know, the preacher used to always tell me my ego was too big to be on his staff. I didn't know what he was talking about. I was thinking, I didn't want to be on your staff. I need to be preaching. You need to sit on the pew. That was my mindset. You need to get your butt on the pew and let me take over your church. That's the same church I clammed out the window and left. The door wide open. All you gotta do is walk out like a man. I jumped out the window. Yeah. And I see a lot of guys coming in the treatment program like that too now. You know, they high, boy, they I'm this and I'm that, and whatever. Fred would not believe himself alcoholic. That's true. Yeah. That's very true. Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe I'm wrong, but in time past, that thought have changed. They don't last that long. Before, you used to don't believe it and fake it. But now, I think people who come in to like our programs today, if you don't believe you're an alcoholic or an addict, it don't take long for you to be gone. It used to be you could sit down. Am I right, Ken? Yeah, you could sit in there for a long time with that. I don't know. Something has changed. You got that attitude, in 2 weeks, you don't relapse. It don't work no more. I don't know why. I think we done got better and more experience where we can see it real fast. We try to reel you in. But if you got that attitude that I'm not one of y'all, it ain't going to last. I see him go out a lot quicker now. I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it. I ain't trying to figure out why. I'm just telling you, if you got that attitude, please change it fast. Fred will not believe himself an alcoholic, much less accept spiritual remedy for his problem. You know, you hear that spiritual remedy all the time. We hear that all the time. Let's talk about remedy. What they're saying, a remedy is, I'm going to read it straight out the dictionary, means application or treatment that relieves or cures a disease. I'm going to read it again, slower. Remedy means an application or treatment that relieves or cures a disease. Now, we know we can't be cured, so we have to be relieved. That's where that spiritual daily reprieve come in. We have a disease of addiction, and we also have a spiritual application or a spiritual treatment that will get you in a position that a power greater than yourself can remove the obsession to use. That's the miracle. That makes sense? Now, you hear me starting to change the talk, because the book is changing if you see the flavor. We're going more toward the spiritual remedy. That makes sense? The 12 steps are ego deflators. They are steps that's going to allow you, if you don't have a power greater than yourself, if you work the 12 steps, you will develop a power greater than yourself, which has already been in you. It will start to come out and manifest itself in your life. That makes sense? That's what the 12 steps is about. All right? We told him what we knew about alcoholism. They're talking about, when you read that little sentence, they're talking about the disease of addiction. They're talking about the physical allergy and the mental obsession. How I'm allergic to alcohol and drugs. I put any alcohol or drugs into my body develops a craving for it. That makes sense? To people who are new tonight, we got tapes and CDs on it. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. But you get with your sponsor or come back, you'll understand. But what it's basically saying that my body craves for alcohol and drugs once I put it in. Well, my sisters and other people in my family, they don't have the disease. They can go out tonight and drink or whatever, and they don't end up in Geekville. I do. And what they mean by the craving is beyond my mental control. What it's really saying, and I'm going to do this because you'll understand. If you don't know, you will know. If you're on the ground geeking, looking for something that's not there, and let's just say you made a promise to your kids or your grandkids or your nieces. I'm talking about little innocent kids. You know what I'm trying to say? That you promised them that you're going to give them some money so they can go to Six Flags or go on more important than that, go on a school trip. Yeah. They need that money. The mama and everybody's waiting on you to bring the money to them so they can make that field trip. But you somewhere on the ground geeking. And your mind say, get up, fool. You know you're supposed to be taking that money to the kids. And you don't move. But your mind is telling you to get up and do the right thing. But you still do not do it. What's that's telling me and the rest of the world? That you are powerless. Because your own mind can't make your behind do what it's supposed to do. So you are powerless. That's what it means by the craving is beyond or larger or bigger or greater or more, or maybe your higher power. I don't know. But I can tell you one thing. The craving is bigger than your mind, your mental part of you that can tell you to get up to do the right thing. You stay on the floor. You powerless. That makes sense? That's what they told Fred. You might have that big old accounting firm. You might make all that big income with the beautiful wife and the college educated, going to go to college kids. But you take one drink, you at the bar. And I did this last night at another place. You at the bar. And they thought I was a little crazy, because I thought everybody did that. You stay at the bar so long and you get so drunk that you stay there all night, that you watch the cleaning crew. You know the people that come in to clean up? They come in and they clean up, and I'm still sitting at the bar. All the chairs upside down on the tables. They mopping and cleaning up the floor. I thought everybody had experienced that one. Got to find out there were a few people know what I'm talking about. They usually go home. I didn't go home. When the cleaning crew left, I left with them. That's what they told Fred. That makes sense? Then they told him about his mind, that it's going to be a thought that's going to be a lie. They're going to tell you, look, just get you one. Just get you one. Everything going to be all right. it ain't going to hurt you. So you're going to have a thought, you're going to believe the lie, and you're going to act on the lie. They told Fred this stuff. That's about alcoholism. All right? So it says that they told him what we knew about alcoholism. He was interested and conceded that he had some of the symptoms. Denial. But he was a long way from admitting that he could do nothing about it himself. He knew that he had, since he was educated and a partner in a big old accounting firm, that, military officer like me, I can handle this myself. That's what he thought. He was positive that his humiliating experience, plus the knowledge he had acquired, would keep him sober the rest of his life. Self-knowledge would fix it, and it will not. Just because you got knowledge about this stuff, that's not enough. Step one is not enough. I got to tell you that. It's a great beginning, but it's not enough. That makes sense? Yes. It is not enough. You got to do the rest of the steps. All right?
We heard no more of Fred for a while. One day we were told that he was back in the hospital. This time he was quite shaky. He soon indicated he was anxious to see us. The story he told is most instructive, for here was a chap absolutely convinced he had to stop drinking, who had no excuse for drinking, who exhibited splendid judgment and determination in all his other concerns, yet was flat on his back nevertheless. Let him tell you about it. I was much impressed with what you fellas said about alcoholism, and I frankly did not believe it would be possible for me to drink again. I rather appreciated your ideas about the subtle insanity which precedes the first drink, but I was confident it could not happen to me after what I had learned. I reasoned I was not so far advanced as most of you fellas, that I had been usually successful in licking my other personal problems, and that I would therefore be successful where you men failed. I felt I had every right to be self-confident, that it would be only a matter of exercising my willpower and keeping on guard.
Let's stop there. Fred getting a little cocky, ain't he? What you call that? He's unique. He's not like the rest of y'all. We heard no more of Fred for a while, because Fred was running on self-knowledge. One day we were told that he was back in the hospital. This time he was quite shaky. He soon indicated he was anxious to see us. I would be anxious too. You know what I'm trying to say? He knew that he had it going on, and then it failed. But somewhere down the line, he remembered what the people had said. So he anxious, man, he had to get back in a hurry, excited to get a little bit more information so it'll stick this time. That makes sense? He's still doing it from the mind. No work involved, but I just need to get a little bit more information. Just let me call that sponsor one more time. You know what I'm saying? Let me just if I just get me 10 more days of the knowledge, I'll be okay. All right. The story he told us is most instructive. Instructive means he's carrying a message, a lesson. That's why every time someone relapses in our society, what we try to do is, I don't want to just kick you out. But attitude plays a good part of it. You got a bad attitude, you can go. But if you got a good attitude, we bring them back and we go over everything that happened. And it's the same story. That's what I'm trying to tell you. This is a simple disease. They're always on their way to grandma's house. On the way, a thought say, beep, hold it. Before you go see grandma, just go over here. I don't want to tell you what here is, Just go over here. And then get you one. And then go to grandma's house. Never fails. They get one, then the allergy kicks in. And then they go on a well-known spree, and then in remorse, and then call me crying. Why you didn't cry before you went to grandma's house? It's the same story all the time, y'all. And that's why we bring you back. I don't know what that guy gonna do and how long it's gonna last, but I do know one thing. The people who hear the story over and over and over, it's so simple that it'll click in you. That makes sense? It'll save your life. So that's what happened here. They say his story was instructive. It's a lesson in it. most instructive. For here was a chap absolutely convinced he had to stop drinking, who had no excuse for drinking, who exhibited splendid judgment and determination in all his other concerns. Yet he was flat on his back nevertheless. He was the type that we were talking about last week after the meeting. You know, it's a meeting after the meeting. Don't run out of here, Anthony. It's a meeting after the meeting. So what we were talking about was the fact that he always used when things were going good. Yeah. When his life is going good. He didn't want to use when it was bad. He wanted to fix his life, get it up to a standard so he can use. There's a lot of people like that. They got no excuse for using, but they use. The disease of addiction don't care. Only thing I can tell that person is fix a good life and let that be your bottom. And then come up with a bigger life so that be your bottom so you can keep growing and growing and growing. Change your thinking. If you think you got it going on right now, use the creative imagination, your creative mind that God gave you and create a bigger life than that one and go for that one. Let that be your rock bottom. That way you ain't got to never worry about reaching the top. Ain't no top. You be dead and gone. Top still be in imagination. That's my suggestion. That's just Robert though. I don't have no answers. But that's possible. It's humanly possible. You get to another level, create another one. That make sense? I don't lost my play talking about that one. All right, he said let me just go down here. Let him tell you about it. How's that? I was much impressed with what you fellows said about alcoholism. And frankly, I did not believe it would be possible for me to drink again. He really did believe this stuff, right? Am I reading that right? So he said it would be possible for me to drink again because he knew the intellectual workings of the mind, and he kind of figured out in his mind that was the answer. I rather appreciate your ideas about the subtle insanity which precedes the first drink. He talking about that delicate insanity, that obsession. He appreciate that. They told him right. I was confident it would not happen to me after what I have learned. Took this as an educational class. I reasoned I was not so far advanced in it, but see, after he say what he had learned, then he go to being, I ain't gonna say in the night. I think he's going to be unique. You guys need to stay and get a little bit more. But I know that I'm different from y'all. And he goes on to say, I reasoned I was not so far advanced as most of you fella. Y'all gonna hit rock bottom. I ain't got there yet. That's what he's saying. That I have been usually successful in licking my other personal problems, and that I would therefore be successful where you man failed. See, he think this is a personal problem. He don't see it as a disease like cancer or any other disease. You know what I'm trying to say? He don't see it as that. He just see it as a personal problem. It ain't nothing. I done had financial problem before. I'm back on top. I done had marriage problems. I worked them out. So I got this disease, well, he can't say disease. I got this problem that y'all told me about. I can fix it too. That would only be a matter of exercising my willpower and keeping on God. I felt like that at certain times in my early trying to get clean and sober. I did all kinds of stuff. One time I did my willpower. It might be a little insane, but I did it. I worked for the labor pool, making $33 a day. I got tired of being broke 10 minutes after they gave me my $33. So I went to a thrift store and bought one of them little belts to go around with the pocket right there. And I started putting $25 a day in that, stuffing it. Then I got some duct tape and wrapped around me because I was living in a shelter. And Lord knows if somebody knew I had that, they're going to rob me or take it when you sleep. So I built up, my plan was just to have get me a rooming house, come out the shelter, move in a rooming house, and live happily ever after. That was my plan. It wasn't big looking back, but it was big then. You know what I'm saying? Coming out of that shelter, that was a big plan. So I went to work to do it. I had literally saved up about $500. Now, living in a shelter, holding on to $500 is a serious problem. You know, that's like you got $1 million in there. And people, I had to hide it and conceal it. I didn't want nobody to know I had it. Right before I got ready to go get my room, I got me one. They were gone. But it took me like 3-4 months to do that. So that's what we're talking about, exercising your own willpower. You're going to work this out yourself. That makes sense? I wasn't caring about no disease. I was going to work this out and get myself sober and live happily ever after. I got one better than that one. The military, when I got out, gave me a severance pay of $40,000. $40,000. I was living in a shelter. I went from Pentagon to boom, shelter. I took the $40,000, went to the bank. I'm going to finish this chapter. Went to the bank. They say, I said, I want to cash it. They say, you know, sit down here, what you want, CDs, this, you know, this kind of bank, or you want to put it long terms, all this stuff. I said, y'all don't understand, I want cash. Cash. I ended up walking out there with 2 little bags full of cash. My idea, I was going to buy a Mack truck. I was working with a guy, a dump truck. I was working with a guy that was going around and like the new housing development and pulling all the trash out. And then we had figured out the lumber and all the metal and all that. That's how I learned how to go to these metal places. Copper and this and that steel. We were pulling it out because they were scrapping it, they were throwing it away. We were putting it on and making extra money on top of that. So he needed some help. I was going to go partner with him. To make a long story short, I got my 40. I even went and looked at the Mack truck. I was living in the shelter. I got the Mack truck. The Mack truck had a TV in it and a little bed, the little dump truck. I was going to buy it cash. Make a long story short, I went and got a room. I had a problem because I got $40,000 cash. I pulled a little, first of all, this lady comes up. She says, the old lady that owned the house, she says, she looked at me and she said, I said, I'd like to get a room. She says, well, the rooms are $65 a week and $65 deposit. She looked at me and she started to change that a little bit in her mind. I could see it. You can give me $65 a week and prorate the deposit over 3 weeks, like 20 here, 25, and a 20. She said, or you can give it to me all right now. I had $40,000. I told the lady, I'll give you $65 now and prorate the rest. I mean, I ain't giving you no amount of money. You crazy. I'm trying to get in here for free. You know, I had a shelter mentality. You know? Yeah, I went in there and I had a problem because they gave me a little room. And I had $40,000. You can't leave no $40,000 in no room and how everybody getting high. I moved her little dresser and put my foot through that wall and bust that drywall and stacked that money in there. Then I went to get my truck. I got 2 blocks from the place and I bought me one. I was running back in that room like a buck rabbit. You know that cartoon with the Road Runner? Yeah. I was running back in that room, said 2 weeks I ain't have a dime. I reached in there, it was all gone. No Mack truck, no nothing. And I was at the crack house and the lady said, well, I said, can I get a cigarette? She said, no, fool, get out. I spent $40,000. So I know what he's talking about. Willpower in this frame of mind.
In this frame of mind, I went about my business, and for a time all was well. I had no trouble refusing drinks and began to wonder if I had not been making too hard work of a simple matter. One day I went to Washington to present some accounting evidence to a government bureau. I had been out of town before during this particular dry spell, so there was nothing new about it. Physically, I felt fine. Neither did I have any pressing problems or worries. My business came out well. I was pleased and knew my partners would be too. It was the end of a perfect day, not a cloud on the horizon.
Keep going.
I went to my hotel to leisurely dress for dinner. As I crossed the threshold of the dining room, the thought came to me that it would be nice to have a couple of cocktails with dinner. That was all, nothing more. I ordered a cocktail and my meal. Then I ordered another cocktail. After dinner, I decided to take a walk. When I returned to the hotel, it struck me a highball would be fine before going to bed, so I stepped into the bar and had one. I remember having several more that night and plenty next morning. I have a shadowy recollection of being in an airplane bound for New York and of finding a friendly taxicab driver at the landing field instead of my wife. The driver escorted me about for several days. I know little of where I went or what I said and did. Then came the hospital with unbearable mental and physical suffering.
Let's start there for a minute. I ain't got to do my part in this one. He did a good job of explaining this one. In this frame of mind, this self-will frame of mind, you know what I'm trying to say? I can do this on my own. I got this. I went about my business, and for a time, all was well. I had no trouble refusing drinks, and I began to wonder if I had not been making too hard of a simple matter. He was staying sober, and it's starting to get easy for him. He's like, you know, his mind started going back. You know what I'm saying? This ain't no hard thing. It ain't no big deal. I got this. One day I went to Washington to present some accounting evidence to a government bureau. He finna get paid in Washington. If he going to any other government, I'd say he ain't gonna get paid. You know, but I'm talking about Washington now. I had been out of town before during this particular dry spell, so there was nothing new about that. Physically, I felt fine. Ain't nothing wrong with him. He feeling good. Neither did I have any pressing problems or worries. His mind was clear. My business came out well. He pulled a deal off. I was pleased and knew my partners would be too. Not only did he pull the business off of him, he helped his partners. Everybody grew on that one. That's a good thing. Everybody ate off the turkey leg. He was happy. It was the end of a perfect day, not a cloud on the horizon. I mean, not on the outside, but in the inside there's a cloud. I went to my hotel and leisurely dressed for dinner. That's a new one on me, because the Lord knows everywhere I went, I ain't dressed for nothing. I just went to dinner. Nah, I take that back. When I go on vacation with my wife, we do change for dinner. And you know what I'm trying to say? Especially in the Caribbean. You get so hot and sweaty, and then you go back and you clean your clothes, right? And you go out to nice dinner. Yeah, so I ain't going to say that lie. I done did that. As I crossed the threshold of the dining room, the thought came, obsession, to mind that it would be nice to have a cup of cocktails with dinner. That was all. You know how he tells a lie. He's going to give you that lie. That was all, nothing more. Now, y'all know good and well, if you got the disease, it's always going to be some more. Might not be no more perfect day. You know what I'm trying to say? Oh, everything fine. It might not be no more of that. But you're going to get some more. Some pain and suffering. I ordered a cocktail, y'all already know, and meal. Then I ordered another cocktail. And after dinner, I decided to take a walk. When I returned to the hotel, it struck me, there you go again, a highball would be fine before going to bed. So I stepped into the bar and had one. I remember having several more that night and plenty the next morning. The allergies done triggered in. Right. Remember we talked about the allergy? It's beyond your mental control. He says that I remember having several more that night and plenty the next morning. I have a shadowy recognition of being in an airplane bound for New York and finding a friendly taxi cab driver at the landing field instead of my wife. Now, he done told his wife to meet him there, but he jumps in with a taxi cab. The driver escorted me about for several days. He stayed on, that's a well-known spree. He's on a spree now. That's the whole cycle of addiction. He's on that spree. I know little of where I went or what I did, where I went or what I said and did. Then came the hospital with unbearable mental and physical suffering. Now he's in remorse. Keep going.
As soon as I regained my ability to think, I went carefully over that evening in Washington. Not only had I been off guard, I had made no fight whatever against the first drink. I had commenced to drink as carelessly as though the cocktails were ginger ale. I now remembered what my alcoholic friends had told me, how they prophesied that if I had an alcoholic mind, the time and place would come. I would drink again. They had said that though I did raise a defense, it would one day give way before some trivial reason for having a drink. Well, just that did happen and more. For what I had learned of alcoholism did not occur to me at all. I knew from that moment that I had an alcoholic mind. I saw that willpower and self-knowledge were not helping those strange mental blank spots. I had never been able to understand people who said that a problem had them hopelessly defeated. I knew then it was a crushing blow.
Now let's stop there. As soon as I regained my ability to think, I went carefully over that evening in Washington. You know, I admire him for that. Every time I went on a well-known spree or did something stupid, I try to stuff it. I didn't want to remember it at all. Yeah. You know, I try to blank it out of my mind like it never existed. That makes sense? But he didn't do that. He went carefully over that evening in Washington. I admire him for that. I got to give him credit for that one. The Lord knows I wasn't carefully going over nothing. I was too ashamed. You know, I go home like ain't nothing never happened. Hello, family, how y'all doing? Dad home, you know what I'm saying? I ain't want to hear nothing. And they wasn't about to say nothing either. Not only had I been off guard, he's back in that mind, you know what I'm trying to say? I had made no fight whatsoever against the first drink. He didn't have a defense. No defense. Keep that in mind as we go forward. We're talking about a defense. Our willpower have no defense, but there is a power that is a defense for us. That makes sense? Right. So keep that in mind because we're leaving the substance abuse. We're leaving the disease of addiction. We're leaving step one and going further out into the spiritual remedy, this application. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. We're leaving that. So it's a beautiful thing if you study the book because the book allows you to leave gracefully. It coaches you out of this stuff to the next realm. Does that make sense? It takes you there. It ain't like you got to go on your own. We're all going to go together. It's a beautiful thing. So it says that I made no fight whatsoever against the first drink. This time I had no thought of the consequences at all. No plan, no tape. Remember we went over that? I had commenced to drink as careless as though the cocktails were ginger ale. It's like he was drinking soda.